This might be the wildest reunion clip to hit the internet all year, no cap. We are exactly 10 years removed from one of the greatest comebacks in NBA Finals history, and the Cleveland Cavaliers 2016 championship squad just linked up overseas to relive it. And y'all are not ready for who pulled up to crash the party. Let me break it down from the top, because this one's got layers, and I mean layers. Flashback to 2016. The Cavs are down 3-1 in the finals against a Golden State Warriors team that had just come off a 73-win regular season, the best regular season record in NBA history at that point. Nobody, and I mean nobody, thought Cleveland was walking out of that series with the trophy. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, J.R. Smith, the whole rotation, they go on to win 3 straight, including Game 7 on the road in Oakland, and Cleveland gets its first major sports championship in over 50 years. That's the moment everybody remembers. That's the trip down memory lane this whole video is built around. 10 years later, 10 full years, and the guys are back together, except this time it's not Oracle Arena, it's Europe. Here's where it gets good. According to the footage, this group's reunion tour has already hit Scotland, and now they've made their way to France. And mid-trip, surprise pop up, 2 more former teammates show up to join the celebration. The group's hype is through the roof the second they spot them. You hear it in the audio. Somebody yells, "Guess who I found?" and the whole crew just loses it. That's the energy, boys for life. That's the exact phrase getting thrown around the second the surprise links up with the group, and it tells you everything about how tight this circle still is a full decade later. You don't get that kind of unscripted reaction unless the bond is real. Now let's talk about what actually happens on camera, because the transcript from this clip is rough, no cap. It's the kind of raw, chaotic, multiple people talking over each other audio you get from a real group hangout, not some polished, scripted interview. That's actually part of what makes it hit different, but a few moments cut through clean. At one point, somebody brings up one of the guys' kids, pointing out how much taller he's gotten, and the group just goes off laughing and ribbing each other about it. Small moment, but it's the kind of detail that tells you this isn't a publicity stunt. These are dudes who've actually watched each other's families grow up over a decade of friendship. That's not something you fake for a camera. That's lived in history, the kind you only get from years of actually staying close instead of just posting throwback photos once a year for the algorithm. Then there's the J.R. Smith moment, and this is the part of the story you need to actually sit with. While the crew was still in Scotland, before they made the jump to France, J.R. Smith went live on Instagram. Somebody in his comments brought up a hypothetical, the 2026 New York Knicks against the 2016 championship Cavaliers, and J.R. does not let that rock. Word for word, listen to this. He says they'd be smacking them, tells the commenter flat out to stop, calls it not even a fair comparison, and starts going position by position. He brings up who would even be guarding Jalen Brunson, who would be guarding LeBron James in his prime, who's drawing the matchup on the rest of that current Knicks roster. It is petty, it is hilarious, and it is exactly what you'd expect from the same guy who was out here in 2016 hitting corner threes like it was nothing. 10 years later, and the competitive switch flips just as fast as it did in the finals, like no time passed at all. But here's the twist, and this is what makes the clip actually interesting instead of just another nostalgia reel. Somebody in the group steps in and plays peacemaker. You hear a voice telling JR to relax, telling him we got a good thing going on right now, basically talking him down from turning a fun hype-up moment into an actual beef with a team that's currently good in real time. That's the dynamic right there. One guy ready to go to war over a hypothetical 2016 vs 2026 matchup, another guy trying to keep the whole reunion vibe chill. That tension, that's the moment everybody's going to be clipping and reposting, because it's such a real snapshot of how a championship group actually talks to each other behind the scenes. No PR filter, no league-approved soundbite. Just real reactions, the kind you can't script no matter how hard a brand deal tries to. What if I told you that's not even the most chaotic part of the trip? Because later in the footage, the group brings up some kind of one-on-one basketball challenge that happened earlier in the trip, talking about a course they played and who actually won. There's playful arguing back and forth about how many days they had to film, whether somebody got cooked or not, and at one point someone jokes about getting hit from me to the waiter, basically clowning each other about bad shots and bad luck on whatever course or setup they were playing on. It's loose, it's funny, it's exactly the kind of unfiltered locker room energy you'd expect from grown men who won a championship together and have stayed close for a decade since. And that's the through line of this entire clip. Competition never actually leaves the room. Whether it's a basketball debate or a casual one-on-one challenge on vacation, these guys cannot turn it off. And honestly, would you want them to? That competitive fire is probably the exact same fire that got them through being down 3-1 in the first place. Now let's talk about how fans are reacting, because the split is real. and it's already showing up in the comments under every repost of this footage. Camp 1 is just here for the nostalgia. These are the fans posting throwback photos from the 2016 parade, talking about where they were when Kyrie hit that shot in Game 7, getting emotional that an entire decade has passed since Cleveland ended its championship drought. For them, this trip is pure joy. No analysis needed, just pure. I can't believe it's been 10 years energy, and honestly that's valid, because a championship like that doesn't come around for most franchises, period. Some of these fans weren't even old enough to fully process it live back in 2016, and now they're watching the same guys, a decade older, still rolling deep together overseas, and it's hitting them right in the nostalgia. Camp 2, though, Camp 2 is fully locked into the J.R. Smith soundbite. They're treating it like actual sports debate content, dissecting it the same way you dissect a real trash talk press conference, picking apart who would guard who, whether a prime 2016 roster really sweeps a current-day Knicks team, and going back and forth in the comments about it like it's a finals week all over again. You've got people building out entire hypothetical box scores in the replies off one live stream comment. That's the internet for you. That's exactly how it works. Give it one quote, one offhand comparison, and suddenly it's a full debate with sides drawn and nobody backing down. And that's the bigger pattern here, the thing that ties this whole clip to something way bigger than one reunion trip. 10 years out from a championship, and these guys still can't help themselves. The second somebody brings up a hypothetical matchup, the competitive fire comes right back out, even on a relaxed group trip across Europe with drinks in hand and no cameras officially rolling for the league. That's what separates a team that actually bonded for life from one that just won a trophy together and went their separate ways the next offseason. You don't see a lot of championship cores still vacationing together a full decade later, joking about each other's kids, getting surprised by old teammates showing up out of nowhere, and somebody still being ready to throw hands, verbally, over a what-if matchup against a current roster. That's a real bond, and clips like this are exactly why the 2016 Cavs still get talked about with so much love a full decade later. It's not just about the banner. It's about the people who hung it, and the fact that they're still choosing each other's company a decade later on their own time, in another country, says more than any highlight reel ever could. And here's something else worth sitting on before we wrap this up. Think about how rare this actually is in pro sports as a whole. You watch championship teams get broken up all the time. Front offices move on. Guys get traded the very next summer. Rosters turn over so fast that half the time, a title-winning group never even gets to sit in the same room again once the banner goes up. So when you see this many former Cavs, not just 2 or 3, but a whole crew including a couple of surprise faces nobody expected to pop up, all rolling through Scotland and France together a full 10 years after the fact. That's not normal. That's not how this usually goes. That's the kind of thing that only happens when the locker room chemistry was actually real back in 2016, not just manufactured for a highlight package. And it explains why a decade later they're still finishing each other's jokes, still clowning each other about haircuts and height and bad shots on some course overseas, still slipping right back into boys for life mode the second somebody new walks up. It also explains why the J.R. Smith clip hit as hard as it did, because that's not some random guy talking trash about a team he's never been around. That's a guy who lived through the actual 3-1 comeback, who hit shots in that exact finals run, getting defensive on behalf of a group he clearly still considers his guys 10 years later, with zero hesitation. You don't see that kind of loyalty from a lot of former teammates once the ring ceremony's over and everybody's moved on to the next chapter of their career. That's the stuff that separates this specific group from a lot of other championship rosters across the league, and it's exactly why footage like this keeps circulating and keeps getting reposted every single time a new clip drops from the trip. So here's the question I want y'all sitting with in the comments. Do you think J.R. Smith's right, and that 2016 Prime Cavs roster really does run through the current-day Knicks, position for position? Or is that just 10 years later nostalgia talking? The kind of confidence that sounds great on a trip through Europe, but wouldn't actually hold up on a real court in 2026 with how the league has changed? Drop your starting 5 matchup in the comments. I want to see exactly who you've got guarding who, and don't hold back. This debate isn't going away anytime soon. If this breakdown hit different for you, smash that like button, drop a comment with your take, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We are just getting started, and there is way more from this reunion trip still to break down.